Welcome to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. I'm your host, Jeannie Hall, and I'm a creative inspiration coach who helps writers reignite their creative sparks. This podcast is here to help you knock down any barriers that stand between you and your dreams. You can do it. Join me. Hello, and welcome to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. This is episode 41, Odds. So odds are against most of the truly fabulous things that are available in our lives. Odds against winning the lottery, for example, nearly impossible. Odds of starting a successful 6 or especially 7-figure business? Not great. Odds on meeting the love of your life as a teenager? Astronomical. Odds on scoring a publishing contract with a traditional publisher? Not quite as foreboding, but still difficult. Becoming a best-selling author? Now we're heading into a higher difficulty level again. Yet people accomplish these feats anyway. All the time. Every day. Or almost every day. Lotteries are won. Businesses become successes. Young people fall in love. For real. Authors receive their first contracts. And some even gain that coveted bestseller status that we're talking about. These things do, in fact, happen. They are not impossible. Few things truly are, especially if you set your mind on doing it. So why do we hear so much about these crazy odds? It's everywhere. If you watch TV, if you listen to the radio, if you watch YouTube, watch movies or TV shows on Netflix, wherever you are, if you're on the internet at all, which pretty much all of us are nowadays, you hear about the odds of success being extremely low. And the reason for this is because it is so much easier to give up than it is to keep trying. And it's even easier to never try in the first place. Which is really sad. Because so many of us think that we shouldn't even try. So we don't. We sit on our couch. We eat Doritos or Pringles or Cheetos or whatever our junk food of choice is. And we just let our lives pass us by. And there's nothing wrong, obviously, with sitting on your couch and enjoying some junk food occasionally. There's no problem with that. But if that becomes a lot of your life, like if you're spending hours a day doing that, or your entire day off, every single day off, that's what you're doing, what are you really accomplishing in your life? But let me ask you a question. I just said it was easier to give up and even easier to never try in the first place. But is it? Really? I found this really interesting quote on Pinterest. Ignoring your passion is slow suicide. And it just struck me, the strength of that quote. Ignoring your passion isn't just letting life pass you by. In this quote, it's slow suicide. What? Right? And what that means, and you can agree or disagree, of course, but what that means is if we don't try, at least, if we don't pursue our dreams, or even allow ourselves to have those dreams in the first place, isn't that the worst fate of all? Imagine looking back at your life at 80 years, let's say, and you look back And most of what you remember is sitting on the couch. Don't you think you'll regret that if that's you? Don't you think you'll wish that you had done something different? I know I would. We do all have free will. And we can choose to stagnate if that's what we want to do. We can choose to stay where we are forever rather than growing or evolving at all. It's your choice. But like I said before, the price of such a choice, very likely, odds here too, are that you're going to experience regret at the end of it. If we make the choice to hide from our true selves and from what we really love, is that living? Really? It's something for all of us to ponder. Now, I personally believe that the odds are there to remind us that certain worthwhile pursuits are supposed to be a challenge. Because how does it feel to succeed at something that many might fail at doing? Right? If it's hard or it's unusual, but you do it and you succeed, how does that feel? Like getting an A on a test that you've been studying on for over the past month. You knew it was going to be a hard test. You knew it would be difficult, but you wanted that A. And by God, you went and got it. Or you got that promotion you've been working toward for the past 2 years. You've been busting your ass for 2 years, right? And you've been trying to do this. And you've been killing yourself at your job because you want that promotion so badly. And then you get it. How does that feel? Or let's say you've just summoned up the courage to finally ask that guy or that girl out who has been smiling at you for weeks. And you finally did it. And they said yes. How does that feel? Or that first month that your business makes more than you ever made working for somebody else. Right? Proof positive. Money in the bank, numbers on the screen, proof that you make more for yourself than you ever made working for somebody else. Awesome, right? How good would that feel? Or does it feel when you do that? These are all momentous occasions, and all of them often hard-won. And yet these tend to be the most satisfying. Not only because of the hard work that it takes to do some of these things, and not only because you had to face your fear to accomplish them, but also because you defied the odds. When I first became a traditionally published author myself, I read a report in the Romance Writers Report, published by the Romance Writers of America. And the article discussed the percentage of published authors who became bestsellers, which was right about 5% of them. So that means of all the traditionally published, they went through a publishing company, they have editors, they have cover artists, they went the old-fashioned way, they have ebooks and paperbacks and all that kind of stuff at their disposal. These authors who get that far, and I am one of them. Of all of those who become bestsellers, it's only about 5%. And then they looked at the percentage of best-selling authors who have, which success is one of those terms that can be subjective because everybody has a different definition of success for them personally. But let's say your definition of success would be being a best-selling author who also has name recognition. Those people like Nora Roberts or Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. The kind of names that even if you're not a huge reader, you know who they are, right? And a lot of you guys probably don't even know, unless you're a romance reader or writer, you may not even know who Nora Roberts is, even though she's the bestseller of over 200 novels. She's been writing for over 30 years. And yet that percentage also, the name recognition of best-selling authors, about 5%. So think of that. Not only are these people traditionally published and vetted by publishing industry professionals, but of that group, the bestsellers, which are only 5%, only 5% of those, the best-selling authors, only 5% of them actually have the name recognition to where the average person even knows who they are. And the writer of the article stated that when surveyed, the percentage of those who say they want to write a book, just people who go around saying that, compared to those who actually do write the book, is also typically around 5%. That 5% number kept popping up. And we see similar situations and similar percentages in the business world too. Because odds are against success. There are always more failures than successes when it comes to being an entrepreneur for anybody. But then people defy the odds all the time, like we already said, right? Let me give you an example. How does some guy living in impoverishment with a single mom who happened to be very abusive and who left home at 17, never went to college, become Tony Robbins, a guy Forbes magazine just reported as being worth $480 million? Yeah. If you haven't heard of Tony Robbins, and if you've been listening to this podcast, you have. But if this is your first podcast that you've ever listened to from me, and you don't know who Tony Robbins is, just stick his name in any search engine and see what pops up. It's a lot. This guy is basically a personal development guru. He is huge, and he has been huge for decades. And he is, of course, a published author and he's basically the first life coach that there ever was, essentially. That's how big this guy is. And this guy came from what most of us would term as nothing, and with all the odds against him. Abused kid, had to leave home at 17, never went to college. That guy is worth $480 million? Yeah, he is. And then how did some little African American girl grow up dirt poor, and I do mean dirt poor, in Mississippi? The daughter of a teenage mother on welfare and the victim of sexual abuse growing up. And how did she become Oprah freaking Winfrey? Right? And I know you know who that is. And this lady is worth upwards of $3 billion. That's billion with a B. Talk about odds being against her, right? She's a woman. She's an African American woman. She grew up out of, again, nothing, and with abuse and with horrendous stuff in her past. She shouldn't be where she is, according to the odds. But guess what? She totally defied those odds, just like Tony Robbins did, just like everyone who is a success did, just like you can. And these people, these successes, whether they're huge like Oprah and Tony Robbins, or whether they're just someone who is living life on their own terms in their own home, doing what they want to do and loving what they do, all those folks did is they kept seeing their failures and their setbacks that they experienced as a simple part of their success. And of course, there were failures and there were setbacks. There are for everyone. And that's something you'll have to understand. If you want to be a success, you will experience failure. That is part of the game. And you will experience setbacks. That is a part of the process. The difference that successful people have, that people who are not successful don't have, is that they don't stop. When they fail, they try again. When there's a major setback, they go right back at it. They don't ever let anything stop them. And I'm not saying they don't have a bad day or a bad week or maybe longer. I'm not saying they don't cry and gnash their teeth and punch a wall and scream at the universe, cuss God. Who knows? They might do all those things. But the thing is, at some point, whether it's immediately or whether it's a week or a month later or 6 months or however long, they go back. They don't let it defeat them. They don't give up. So if you really do subscribe to the notion, the law of attraction notion, that there are no coincidences, then you realize that everything in your life is serving some sort of purpose. Everything that is happening in your life right this second is there for a purpose. Everything in your past, same thing. There is a reason that it happened. And it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you deserved it. That's not true at all. Just the opposite. You deserve everything. You are worth everything, every good thing. So if something bad is in your past, or if something bad is in your present, it's just there to give you clarity. It's there to show you that maybe you don't want that and maybe something needs to change. It's there to show you that you get to choose what you want. And if it's in the past and it's already happened, let it go. But if it's happening right now, you can do something to change it. There is a lesson in there somewhere. There's a choice you need to make, an action you need to take to change it. And it's totally within your power to do that action. Just make sure before you take that action, like I've said before, that you're in a happy, inspired place. And if you're really struggling, that's hard to do, and I get that. I totally get that. But if you're struggling and you know you're unhappy in some aspect of your life, or maybe even all aspects of your life, hopefully not, but if that's the case, then really look at how you got to where you are right now. Did you just kind of fall into your life? Did you just kind of let it happen to you and you didn't do any of the steering? Because you can take the wheel anytime you want. The abuse that Tony and Oprah both suffered didn't leave them as permanent victims. And that's what happens with some of us. Sometimes something really, really bad happened in our childhoods or even recent past. Could be your adulthood. A lot of times, though, it's when we were kids. And it was so bad that we let it cripple us for the rest of our lives. We let it take charge. And we don't have to. That's a choice too. You can let it defeat you. You can let it define you as a victim. Or you can say, no, it happened for a reason. I'm now stronger because of it. I am more compassionate now because of it. I can empathize with other people now because of it. and I'm going to go out and make a difference. Because that's exactly what happened with Tony and Oprah. With Tony, because of the abuse that he experienced, he became arguably the most famous and most successful life coach that has ever been. My mentor, who I frequently mention on this podcast, Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School, and by the way, she's a millionaire herself. She attended one of his renowned Date with Destiny seminars years and years ago. And at least partially due to this, and she does credit Tony for this, at least partially, she has been able to help hundreds of other people as her clients. And she's also been able to train hundreds of other people become successful life coaches themselves. So not only has she trained one-on-one and in group settings and helped her clients individually to get past whatever problems they're having and go out and live the life of their dreams, but she has also trained coaches. So she's training other people how to go out and train and help other people. So because of her, who knows how many people have been helped? And part of her training came from Tony Robbins. So combined, how many lives have Tony and Brooke changed for the better? For Brooke, I'm guessing it has to be in the thousands, at least. And you've probably, unless you've listened to my podcast, you may have never even heard of Brooke Castillo. But she has made a huge difference in this world, especially in the area of personal development and self-growth. And for Tony, he's been doing it since the 80s. So it's probably at least in the tens of thousands. And we're talking some huge people. People like Richard Branson are friends of his. Timothy Ferriss. Some of these huge moguls. Some of them, he helped make them moguls. So, yeah, the impact that he had. And he's just a kid with no college education who left home at 17 and had a crappy childhood. Right? He shouldn't be the one out there making this huge difference, making himself and lots of other people millions of dollars, and more importantly, making them happy and satisfied with their lives, making them realize who they really are. And that's not even mentioning Oprah, right? Everybody knows who Oprah Winfrey is. Everybody. So the impact, whether you love or hate her, man, she has had such a wide-ranging effect, positive effect on people. Talk about a ripple effect. So the way to become a success, the way to beat the odds, is to never, ever give up. When something doesn't work, change it and try again. When something falls apart, put the pieces back together in a new way. When you stumble and you faceplant hard, get back up, wash your face off, laugh it off, and do it again. This is how we succeed. We learn from what went wrong. We figure out how to do it differently. Every disease we have ever cured as a species, every time we found that cure, it was through trial and error. We didn't know the solution. We didn't. But because scientists and doctors and laboratory techs kept working and working and working until the right discovery was made, we have all these diseases now that used to kill millions that are completely gone, that are completely curable. Successful people don't just luck into their successes. Sometimes that's what we do. We'll see someone like Oprah or like someone else who is super successful, or they have lots of money, or they're happily married, or whatever it is that we want, that we're coveting, right? We'll see them and we'll say, they're so lucky. Ugh. right? They're not just lucky. They made it happen for themselves through the choices that they've made and through the actions that they took. Because people who just luck into success, those successes tend to be very short-lived. So sure, maybe they won the lottery, let's say. But you probably already know that there's lots of people who've won the lottery who 5 years later are just as destitute as they were before. The difference is that successful people, the real successes, they keep trying, they keep going, and they continually move forward, even if that movement is sometimes only a crawl. So today, I encourage you to defy the odds, to be a part of that 5% rather than the 95%. Get off that couch and out of that recliner. Take a chance on your idea and believe in yourself so strongly that what others might say or believe about you doesn't even matter. You are a part of divinity. You are gorgeous and strong and powerful and absolutely perfect for whatever it is that you want to pursue in this life. So don't let life pass you by. Go out and live it. Go beat the odds. And then come back to me and tell me your story. So together we can inspire others. Have a beautiful day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Writing in Your Jammies podcast. I appreciate every download and every person who has subscribed. I release new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday, so if you enjoy this content, please consider leaving a review. The more reviews fledgling shows like mine receive, the more visible it becomes on the various podcast stations. Each review helps, so if you enjoy what I've been sharing, please help others find this show by leaving a brief review. Thanks again for listening.